What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports, Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to go over 3 envelopes I just recently got back in the mail. One is an oversized envelope, so I got a pretty good idea who that one is, so I'm going to save that one for last. I think these are some NBA/ABA successes, so hopefully we'll open them up and see what we got. Okay, this first one actually is something that I'm really happy to get back. If you guys recall, and I'll put it up in the corner right here, I picked up a Sports Illustrated with Richie Guerin already autographed on the cover, and the other gentleman on the cover was Mr. Jeff Mullins on 2 team cards and a 4th individual card. Jeff Mullins, not to be confused with Chris Mullin of the Golden State Warriors, was a great basketball player for many years. He was part of the 75 championship Golden State Warriors, or Oakland Warriors, whatever they were called back then. He was a 6'4" shooting guard. He also played some small forward. So he played both positions. He originally was actually with the St. Louis Hawks, who are now the Atlanta Hawks. He played at Duke University from 1961 to 64. He was part of the 1964 gold Olympic winning team in the Olympics. Yeah, he played for the Hawks for only a couple seasons from 64 to 66. It doesn't really say who he was traded for, but basically his Wikipedia page says that he had a couple lackluster seasons with St. Louis, and then he was moved to the Golden State Warriors, where he really found his niche, so to speak, with the Warriors, and his career took off from there. He spent 10 seasons with the San Francisco Golden State Warriors from 1966 to 1976. He was a 3-time NBA All-Star. As I mentioned earlier, he was an NBA champ in 1975. Duke University actually has his number 44 retired in the rafters. He averaged 16.2 points per game, which is a pretty fair amount. Probably goes down as one of the best Golden State Warriors ever. Kind of gets lost in the shuffle of the shooting guards and small forwards that are playing nowadays for them, or in the past, like Kevin Durant. But definitely, if I was putting an all-time Warriors team together, Mr. Mullins would get very strong consideration for being on that team. Now, the cool thing is, he signed this one in gold paint pen or gold Sharpie. The other ones he signed in black. But as I mentioned earlier, with that Sports Illustrated, as you can see here, I'm going to try to hold it the best I can. I asked him, may I send that Sports Illustrated to you? Yes or no? And he circled yes. So stay tuned in a future episode. You may be seeing that Sports Illustrated sign. So thank you very much, Mr. Mullins. Okay. This next one looks like it's postmarked from the DC area. Oh, very, very happy to get this one back. This is one of the greatest ABA players ever. He was listed as one of the top 30 ABA players. So very happy to get this back. And this is Pacers point guard Freddie Lewis on 1. 2 as a St. Louis Spirit. I have a team card as a St. Louis Spirit. And if you recall, I got Billy Keller to sign this back a while back. He has signed the Billy Keller part of the card. Now I just need to get George McGinnis somehow to finish it off. And I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that outside of maybe going to Indianapolis to try to get it signed. So, George McGinnis, I'd really like to get your autograph if that's possible. I'd even pay you for it if needed. Now, I flubbed up a little bit. I'm just going to tell you before we talk about Mr. Lewis, I do make mistakes. That's what happens sometimes when you're stuffing envelopes late at night and you're not really paying attention. Well, knowing that he was a great Indiana Pacer, I decided to stick the Pacers team card in there. Well, unfortunately, if you look, that was the year he was with the St. Louis Spirits. Now, I most likely have the St. Louis Spirits team photo, and not realizing that he was on the Spirits that year, I put this one in there thinking, well, maybe I'll send it to Bob Leonard, I'll send it to, Billy Keller again after I get Mr. Lewis to sign it. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't the year Mr. Lewis was on the team, and on the back of the card, he let me know that. Not on picture. So, that just goes to prove I sometimes make mistakes too. I don't want to say he ruined my card. I think this is actually unique. Unfortunately, if I do send it to some of the other guys, I hope they don't turn that over and say, wait a second, not on picture, what's that mean? So I thought that was kind of cool that Lewis did the not on picture card there. So anyways, Freddie Lewis, this is a major autograph to add to my collection. I am so happy, Mr. Lewis, that you signed these. So grateful that you signed these. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Freddie Lewis. All right, so Freddie Lewis played at Arizona State University. He was a point guard. He was selected by the Cincinnati Royals, the 88th overall pick, so not that high of a pick. He only spent a couple years with Cincinnati, but then he landed with the Indiana Pacers in 1967. It was there that he became a part of one of the best teams or dynasties from that era in the ABA. He became a champion with the Pacers from 1970, 1972, and 73. He garnered the ABA Playoffs MVP in 1972. He was a four-time ABA All-Star. He was the ABA All-Star Game MVP in 1975. He's, like I mentioned, a member of the all-time ABA team, which is the top 30 players. He averages 16 points per game for his career. He, spent a great amount of time with the Pacers. He's considered one of the greatest Pacers ever, and he has seen the counterparts of his teammates in the Hall of Fame. And the only reason I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame is because he wasn't with the Pacers as long as the other players were. I think they spent the majority of their careers there, which he spent the majority of his career with the Pacers as well. But he was kind of traded for 3 or 4 seasons there. So maybe that's why they don't view him, in the Hall of Fame. Maybe I'm wrong. But after he left the Pacers, he went to the Memphis Sounds. He went to the St. Louis Spirits, as indicated on that card. And it was with the St. Louis Spirits that he actually had one of his best seasons. In 1974-75, he averaged 22.6 per games, being named the MVP of the 1975 All-Star team. Now, he almost won another championship, but they lost to the Kentucky Colonels in the playoffs that year, or otherwise he would have had a 4th NBA title, or ABA title to his credit. After the merger, the Pacers, became part of the NBA. He returned to the Indiana Pacers, where he finished out his career. So I'm looking at his Wikipedia page, and it talks about Hall of Fame balloting, and it's kind of amazing to me that he's not in the Hall of Fame. He is in the top 6 all-time scorers in the ABA. So think of the top 6 or the top 5 scorers in the ABA. I almost guarantee every one of them is probably in the Hall of Fame. That would probably be your Moses Malone, your Dr. J, etc. So why is this guy not in? He won championships. by the time the NBA merged, I almost want to say if he was in the NBA, he'd probably be in the Hall of Fame. So that's why, this channel is so important. I want to bring to you, the viewing public, this is Freddie Lewis. He belongs in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame just as much as some of the other players that are in there, including his teammates. So hopefully, Mr. Lewis, you get an opportunity, you or your family sees this video, and it puts a smile on your face, because I think you're a Hall of Famer, and I think you'll be there eventually. So thank you very much for signing these. I again apologize about sending this card that doesn't have you on it. I had good intentions, I swear, but I probably have the St. Louis Spirits team card. If I was paying attention, I would have sent that instead of the Pacers one. So thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, for adding these to my collection. All right, so this final one is postmarked from Seattle, Washington. And this is probably one of my most favorite basketball players ever. I never saw him play. However, I remember him as a coach. Many of you will remember him as a coach that are watching this channel. Some of you may remember him as a player. Well, he uniquely was a player coach. He's one of those rare breeds that was a player and a coach at the same time. And who else am I talking about other than the great Hall of Famer, Lenny Wilkens? On one Seattle Supersonics tall boy, a 1986 Star coaches set. One of my favorite sets is the Skybox series. So a Skybox reproduction card, and one that I'm very grateful to get back, already signed by Cleveland Cavalier teammate Austin Carr, now has Lenny Wilkens on it. So very, very happy. I'm going to adjust these so you can see them all. So Lenny Wilkens, this is one of the most amazing basketball players, coaches I could even talk about. He is a unique person in the fact that he has been elected to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame not once, not twice, but actually 3 times. And you're like, what? How could you be elected 3 times? Okay, first of all, he was elected as a player. That's pretty basic. Second, he was elected in 1998 as a coach. I believe at the time he was the all-time winningest coach in NBA history. So how did he get in a 3rd time? Very simple. He was part of the 1992 Dream Team. A lot of people don't realize that he was the assistant coach behind Chuck Daly on the 92 Dream Team. So technically, he got elected because the entire team got elected into the Hall of Fame. Also, he was elected in 2006 to the College Basketball Hall of Fame. He played his college basketball at Providence College. He was drafted by the St. Louis Hawks. He spent 8 years with the St. Louis Hawks. He played then for the Seattle Supersonics. It was at that point when he was with Seattle that he was actually named their head coach as well. So from 1969 to 1972, he just didn't play games, he coached the games as well. So he was a point guard, one of the best point guards ever. He is a very knowledgeable basketball player and coach. From 1972 to 74, he left Seattle and joined Cleveland. He was not the head coach of the Cleveland Cavs. However, his tenure in Cleveland was pretty successful. He did some pretty good things, leading the team, in assists, obviously. Austin Carr being their main scorer. After the 74 season, he then joined the Portland Trail Blazers, where he again became their player coach. So from 1974 to 75, he was a player coach. Then in 1976, he just was or 75, 76, he retired from being a player and just was a coach. He was let go by the Trailblazers after the 76 season. That is when he joined the Seattle Supersonics, not as a player, but just as their coach. So he coached from 77 to 85, the Seattle Supersonics. He won the NBA championship, Seattle's only ever championship, in 1979. For some of the younger viewers that are watching, the Seattle Supersonics are currently the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the only championship in the history of that franchise, this was their head coach. He somehow was not the coach of the year that year for some reason. I don't understand that. As going back to his playing days, he was a 9-time NBA All-Star. He was an All-Star Game MVP in 1971. He is on the 50th anniversary all-time team. Number 19 is retired by the Seattle Supersonics. Going back to his Olympic 1992, he was also the head coach in 1996 of Dream Team 3. So he actually has 2 gold medals. He won the Chuck Daly Lifetime Achievement Award during the 2011 NBA season. So thank you, Mr. Wilkens. Thank you for almost completing that Cavs card. This tall boy from, your Seattle playing days is awesome. I am so happy to add all of these autographs to my collection. To me, Lenny, you are a Hall of Famer, but these other 2 individuals, Freddie Lewis and even Jeff Mullins here, belong in the Hall of Fame as well, in my opinion. And that is why I do this on YouTube, is to not bring, the common people that everybody knows about. Okay, everybody knows who, the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and all those guys are. I mean, it's not that they sign autographs through the mail, but people can talk about hours, on YouTube about them. But what about these other players? What about these other great players that people just don't pay attention to? And I just noticed his name is misspelled on that card. I just noticed that it's INS where it should be ENS. So, very cool. Thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to your comments below.